Hey everyone, welcome to Recommendable. My name is Pat, and with me I have Evan. Say hi, Evan.
Hi, Evan.
Recommendable is a podcast that we take a movie or a game or a book coming out, and we talk about things you might like if you've liked that property. So, for example, today we're covering James Bond. There's a movie coming out, No Time to Die, and we'll be talking about other espionage properties that you might enjoy if you've seen and liked No Time to Die. So stay tuned.
Pat,
Yes.
tell me, what is the plot of No Time to Die? Do we know that yet?
Yeah,
Let's
we
jump right
do.
in. What is this even?
So No Time to Die is the fifth and final Daniel Craig Bond movie, who's been one of my favorite Bonds since Casino Royale came out. And this is his swan song. I believe in the trailer they even show another 00 who's taking over his role, and he's coming out of retirement for probably the fifth time. He probably retires every movie. And so it's about him coming back into the fold, dealing with some of the characters from the previous movie. I know there's some characters from Spectre in it, and dealing with the new danger that his love interest knows about. So that's a plot as I know it. I don't know too much else about the plot. But why don't we jump in and talk about our favorite Bond movies throughout history. I don't know how many Bond movies you've seen. I've seen all of them multiple times. Big Bond fan, being born in England, of course. So, Evan, how many Bond films have you seen?
I've seen the popular ones. How about that? So, like Goldeneye, all the current Daniel Craig ones, and I've seen From Russia with Love a long time ago. I've seen it. I've seen I've seen some of them half through Goldfinger. Like I've seen bits and parts of it. I always passingly liked James Bond movies, but I never took a real hard fascination with them until one time I was with one of my buddies. Hey, Casino Royale, Craig looks pretty good. Let's go check it out. I'm like, I've never gotten to see a Bond movie in theater. Let's go. And that blew my mind about how like awesome Bond could be. But then you go back and watch the old ones, and they're not the same.
They definitely don't hold up.
Yeah, not to say that they're bad, but I was expecting. I'm like, I see like a little bit of Goldeneye, and I played the game, and I'm like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on. And then I actually sat down and 100% focused on it, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. If I've been missing all this the whole time, and I go back and watch some of the older ones, it's like 45 minutes of dialogue.
Yeah, I will say, so the Sean Connery ones definitely show their age so far as quality goes, specifically for women and the portrayal of women.
Man talk.
I would say I don't like Connery as Bond. He did it okay, just never really grabbed me.
Roger Moore, I love his Bond, the character he plays as Bond, and he's a lovely man, or was a lovely man on top of things, but his movies are some of the worst, to be honest. There's some really corny stuff. At one point, I don't know if you've ever seen this one, Evan, at one point he hooks up with a sheriff out of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Press that pedal, boy.
And they go on this like yeehaw car chase. Have you never seen it?
You're not thinking that. I sure am, boy. Never heard of Evil Knievel.
There's two of them. I cannot remember the name of that, but it's the most corny Bond of all the Bonds. One of them's called Octopussy, and another one, Moonraker. Even though it was a very interesting technical project at the time, it does not hold up as a movie. They wanted to just do Star Wars came out, they wanted to do a space movie. It doesn't really hold up. A View to a Kill is actually one of his better ones, but he's like 80 by the time he did that, so he's limping upstairs.
Oh god. Yeah.
So they don't hold up very well so far as the entertainment value, aside from the nostalgia aspect. But I'll give a shout out to Timothy Dalton as the most underrated Bond. He only did 2.
Okay.
But they paved the way for Brosnan and Daniel Craig, because Bond was darker. Bond was more willing to kill in cold blood, whereas the other Bonds, he felt that they were the hero. I remember specifically in one of Dalton's Bonds, he literally kicks a guy off a cliff. I believe they're in a car and he like kicks it off a cliff.
There's $2 million in that suitcase. I'll split it with you. You earned it. You keep it, old buddy.
The way they used to portray Bond for Connery and Moore was that they responded to someone trying to hurt them. And in this one, the chase is over and Bond's just like, I'll kill you anyways. But his Bond portrayal was fantastic. And you can clearly see, even though he only got 2, I think if Dalton had done it in the 90s, post-Cold War, he would have been a great Bond, although I love Pierce Brosnan as well.
Yeah, I'll say I really just jumped on the Daniel Craig bandwagon for like actively caring about every movie that came out. But yeah, a lot of the old ones like I used to watch hints of, but no, the new ones I can speak to. The old ones, unfortunately, I know about them. I know the memes. I know the jokes. I've interacted with other Bond media more than the movies.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think for people our age, we're in our 30s. For us, the 2 big ones that matter are Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. They really, I will give the Bond franchise credit. They keep reinventing themselves. Brosnan came in, the Cold War's over. Now you've got to have a new set of villains, and you get like the media mogul in Tomorrow Never Dies. You get the oil pipeline owner in The World Is Not Enough. Those are 2 fantastic movies. Obviously, Goldeneye is considered the classic. Yeah. And I think that's because the video game. If you're our age, you played that video game.
100%. Like, I didn't care about it until that game. We rented it and we're playing it, and we're like, oh, this is like the movie. It's not like the movie. It plays major scenes, but it's all action, like all the time. But no, everybody our age range is probably, if they haven't played it, they've at least have a passing knowledge of it, right?
They either have played it or they had a PlayStation 1 and didn't know anyone with a Nintendo 64.
Yeah, either they. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And then Daniel Craig comes in after 9/11 and after Jason Bourne, and they really redefine it. It's a lot more of a visceral action movie. So Casino Royale, I think, is my #1 favorite Bond movie of all time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and so you agree with that, yeah. And yes, I think it's weird to say that because the movie stops halfway through and has a 45-minute poker game.
Yeah, but it was intense.
It was great.
It was interesting. Yeah, you can do detours in your movie that are off the beaten path for what the story's trying to tell.
Yeah,
as long as it's interesting. If it's not interesting, then you lose everybody. But that was still like high stakes. I was still like, oh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a movie that did everything. The action was hard hitting, just like kind of Jason Bourne. If the Pierce Brosnan movie of the last one, Die Another Day, probably my least favorite Brosnan movie for sure. But one of the worst Bond movies too. It's just the plan is a North Korean. I don't know if you've ever seen Die Another Day, Evan.
I don't think so.
I'll explain the plot for you in 10 seconds. The son of a North Korean general flees to the West, makes himself a white guy in order to hijack a satellite that takes the sun's power and burns the world.
Okay. Now that you're saying this, I have seen this. There was a door in my mind that was closed.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said the North Korean guy disguised himself as a Caucasian to get in there, I'm like, because I remember watching it, I'm like, this is stupid.
It's real bad. It's real bad.
I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then we say that that door just opened up. I was actually on a break at Best Buy when I was working there, and I saw it in the break room. So that's all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So compare that to like the very first scene of Casino Royale, which is that parkour fight where it really feels like every punch is actually being thrown. And just the fact that chase was so high intensity, it was incredible. And then it just gets better from there. Eva Green plays Vespa, the female lead. She's fantastic. She's not just a sexy Bond girl. She actually has her own character. I love that scene where they meet on the train, and her story arc where she's actually involved in the plot, to the point of saving Bond's life at one point.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic character. Even the villain he's not a super strength guy. You could probably, beat him up in a fight. He's evil because he's good at transferring money and playing poker.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's just, yeah,
and it doesn't bring the movie
just
down in any way. You don't need to have this giant fight at the end.
Oh, no, that's because he dies somewhat early near the climax, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gets shot like 40 minutes before the end of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Which is,
then,
it's
the real villain shows up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I've really liked, with the exception of the last one, which is Spectre, I've really enjoyed all of Daniel Craig's movies. I know you don't like Quantum of Solace.
So Quantum is based on something that happened in real life. The waters. Yeah, so it's based on that, and then it just, I don't know, that kind of took me out of it a little bit. For whatever reason, it's just like, it's fine. It was a fine action movie, and if it's on, I'll watch it. But I'm never, if someone says, "Hey, do you want to watch a Daniel Craig movie?" and I'm never like, Quantum of Solace.
It was actually on Netflix the other day, or I can't remember which streaming service, but
yeah,
I actually did watch a part of it again.
It's not like awful action. I remember the fight where they're falling through the scaffolding.
Yeah, there's that.
Kind of cool.
For some reason, the evil villain built a hotel in the middle of the desert. I don't understand why, but he did it.
Because Quantum of Solace, that's why.
Yeah. Obviously, the next one is Skyfall, which I think is good. I like it a lot. It is overrated. I think some people put it near the top, like the #1 Bond movie. But
yeah,
if you stop and think about it, I hate those movies where the villain's plan is to get captured and then break out.
Yeah, because it feels like the villain has the audience's knowledge of what's going to happen. No, I agree. That's frustrating too. You fell into my trap by capturing me. How does that? What do you mean? Really?
yeah. It's the Joker from the Dark Knight type thing. Yeah, and I have the same criticism of that. It's a pretty dumb plot point even in the Dark Knight, but that movie works still for me. Whereas the second time I watched Spyfall, I was like, meh, or Skyfall, excuse me. And to go back to Quantum of Solace for a moment, you mentioned that it's based on a real life thing that happened. A fun fact I found out while I was researching this video is that what happened in real life was actually worse than the Bond movie. In the Bond movie, they double the price. In real life, they triple the price.
Oh, God.
So the real life villains are worse than the Bond villains.
Oh, man.
All right, so we agree.
Right.
Casino Royale, best Bond movie. Go. If you haven't seen it,
yep.
Go see it. It's fantastic.
It's may be the millennial take, but I go back and watch the others, and they make me cringe sometimes. Just like that. Yeah. And I'm not, again, I don't really have too much of an opinion on them because I haven't seen a whole lot of them. But Casino Royale, my top.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. There's definitely, it's not a millennial thing to say, I love all the old Bond films, but they are products of their time, and there's nothing wrong with saying that, even if they're enjoyable films, and they are enjoyable to me. What other espionage movies that we think people who like Bond might want to check out?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm really a big fan of Jack Reacher, and when we get to books, I'll be mentioning that there too. But the first Jack Reacher movie I thought was a lot of fun. The second one, Never Go Back.
I haven't seen that one. I did the first one. I thought it was interesting.
Like Jack Reacher is like a detective, but there's like stuff going on in the back. Bond's a secret agent. He's also a detective because he tries to figure out what's going on. It's like a dual. Like a spy is just a convenient cover up when I work for the British government, but he's still like deep cover. Jack Reacher isn't a spy per se, but it's still, he deals with that. Like you go into some of the books, will go into an organization and try to figure out what's going on. He'll hide himself in there.
Yeah. And there's that like assassination plot, right? Like that's very spy thriller. In the first movie, there's that assassination kind of subplot.
Yeah. And so one of the big things about Jack Reacher is in the books, he's 6'7". He's like this monster of a man. And then when they got Tom Cruise to play him, I loved it because he's Tom Cruise height wise isn't intimidating. So when he does those bold statements, remember you asked for this, and he's out outside the bar and he's fighting all those guys and he's calling how he's going to beat them all up. It's just more you want to see it happen now because Tom Cruise is not the same build. So
right, not even close. I think he's honestly, I mean, he's 5 foot something. He's not a tall guy.
No, not at all.
I assume fans of the book when they heard that were not happy.
Yeah, no, they weren't, but I'm thrilled because low key, I love Tom Cruise as an actor. He's the same guy every movie, drives a motorcycle, runs a lot. Like there's like a few things that he does in every movie. I get it, but that end call when the villain's like trying to call and threaten him because they capture the girl, and he just keeps hanging up on him. The guy's like the villain's like very rarely do you see a hero have that edge where the villain's like, oh god, what are we, wrong guy. So but he's trying to figure out what's going on. There's an assassination plot, and I found it like the villain's pretty scary, manipulates, and good fight scenes. The second one, skip. It's not great, but if you just want a good one shot action, like what's going on, espionage movie, I think Jack Reacher's pretty good.
That's fair. I'm gonna stick with Tom Cruise then, because I agree with you. Tom Cruise is fantastic. He's absolutely an insane person. Let's just start out.
Absolutely.
If you're a member of, I'm sorry if you're a member of 100%. Scientology and you're watching this, but you shouldn't be. It's definitely a cult. Don't give them your money.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I made the distinction of like I like him as an actor.
Yeah. I will see any Tom Cruise. Yeah. I don't even need to see a trailer. If you just tell me Tom Cruise is doing an action movie, I will buy a ticket, especially to this.
See what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And for my recommendation, Mission Impossible, they're probably the best action movies of the last 20 years, including James Bond, including things like Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
And it's because Tom Cruise is in them, because he does as many of his own stunts as possible. There's in one of the movies, he hangs off the side of a plane, and they actually tape him to the side of a plane and have it take off. It's incredible. When he flies a helicopter in the newest one, which is Fallout, they have someone in the plane with him, but he actually learns how to fly a helicopter for the film.
Oh, damn. Okay,
so his dedication to being seen as a badass in movies, it's deserved. There's even a scene, and I believe it's in the newest one, he jumps from one building to another. Now, obviously, he's got like the safety harness, because no one would insure an actor who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But he lands awkwardly on this side of the building, breaks his ankle, gets up, and keeps running in the scene. So there's a scene in the movie where this happens. He jumps across a building, pushes himself up, runs. He's broken his ankle in that scene and just kept going, and they kept filming it.
Damn.
That alone.
That's cool. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So just the pure amount of action scenes that Tom Cruise does as much as he can himself. That's a cliche in movies these days. But Tom Cruise invented that he does his own stunts style thing. I really feel like he's the one who kind of mastered that as almost a marketing technique for the movies.
Yeah, and speaking of the Mission Impossible movies, there's like maybe one I don't like.
Yeah.
And that's not even like, I think it's two.
It is two.
Three. Yeah, I think it's two. Where I was just like, man, I don't care. It's just like this movie just isn't. I think it was the John Woo directed one.
It is. Yeah. And
I remember all the birds, right? Like
the birds and the flames and the slow-mo motorcycle chases and
like it's I just so after the first one I saw the second one and I'm like, oh, it's over. Like that was lightning in a bottle. Then they've just gotten like better, if not consistently good. Right? You can like anytime a new one comes out, I'm like, I'm not even questioning. I'm like, okay.
It's the only franchise I know that keeps getting better over time. And then 6, they keep upping the ante with the type of stunts they do, the stars they get for it, the stakes. Or the last one it's called Fallout, so obviously there was a nuclear aspect to it.
Yeah.
But just the spectacle of those films, that they'll have a set piece that keeps outdoing the last one. Like I said, being stuck on a plane. That part wasn't part of it's not a big part of the plot, to be honest. They just decided to film an opening scene with him stuck to the side of a plane, and they worked it in. Because they write the scripts on the fly, they do the action scenes, and then they create a plot to go with the action scenes, which is incredible to me.
Okay, yeah, it seems like that shouldn't be that way, but okay.
It shouldn't work, but it works. It works every movie. The less plot they care about and the more action they focus on, seems to work better and better. So,
damn, all right.
Yeah, Mission Impossible. If you haven't seen the Mission Impossible movies, you really need to go see them. They're the best action movies out there, and they seem to box office wise, I think people seem to underrate them. It seems to be a franchise that never quite makes the grade when it comes to blowing it out of the water like a Marvel movie would, but the action is just, it's so worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I've got the Kingsman Secret Service. I think those are a lot of fun.
Those are
I
great
like the
movies.
first one quite a bit. Yeah, like, I don't hate the second one. A lot of people are down on it, but I thought it was just as much fun as the first. Action, cool spy gadgets, the plot's all over the place. Villains are interesting, right? Like this, like the ending of one where the heads are exploding. And it's just like just nuts stuff happening.
The second one has Elton John in it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, dude, and they play Friday. Was it Friday Nights for Fights? And like he starts fighting. That was great. They're fun. Like a couple of the throwbacks to the first movie, right when he does the manners maketh man. He throws the beer bottle at the door, but he just screws it up completely because he's all like took a gunshot to the face. There's these cool like I didn't think I was gonna like them as much as I did, but if you turn off, I hate saying turn off your brain because anything could mean that you can turn off your brain and enjoy just about anything. But if you just want like a fun action like thriller, I guess there's not really a thing because it's not really.
Yeah, the story doesn't. When you say turn off your brain, I think what you mean to say is like the story doesn't matter. The story could be about anything. It's the fun characters. It's the jokes. It's the decent action scenes. That's all you really need for a fantastic film. There's no plot twist that can wow me into an action film that's just got bad action and poor characters in it, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
No,
agree. Yeah, I think that was a good one.
Okay, so I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna take the action for my next recommendation out of the espionage. So these films are all films that are based on John le Carré books, and they very much focus on the espionage. John le Carré was almost like a real life James Bond. He worked for the SIS during World War II, and then he started writing spy novels right around the same time as Ian Fleming, and his novels were much more grounded in kind of the narcissism and what spy life would really be like, with the backstabbing and having to deal with the kind of dirty side of espionage, as opposed to making it fun and entertaining. There's kind of two types of John le Carré films. There's one set in kind of the Cold War era, and then there's another that are set in kind of the modern post 9/11, post Cold War era. Constant Gardner is one of them. Our Traitor, which stars Ewan McGregor, and I'm trying to think of the actress's name. She's also in James Bond. It's Naomi something, and I feel bad for not remembering because she's a fantastic actress. But they're both in it, and then the other one is A Most Wanted Man, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of his last roles. Those three films are fantastic modern spy espionage films. They all are about different things. They're not sequels to each other. One's about Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is trying to catch terrorists post 9/11 in Germany, and kind of him coming to terms with the fact that you're catching terrorists, but you're not ending terrorism, and kind of deals with his battle on that front. Our Kind of Traitor deals with a Russian double agent who's trying to defect to the West, and the fallout of that, trying to get the family out, and regular people getting pulled into the plot. Ewan McGregor and Naomi, I can't remember her. I wish I could remember her name. They're both just ordinary people. They're a married couple dealing with some infidelity issues on vacation, trying to re-spark the romance of their relationship. And they get pulled into this extraordinary plot where they're just fish out of water. And so all three of these films are absolutely fantastic. They're really well done. The characters are fascinating. The plot, the dialogue in all three films is so well done. Highly recommend, if you love espionage films, to take a look at all three of these. They're very much hidden gems. I don't hear a lot of people talking about them. They didn't do particularly well at the box office, and I think it's because at the end of the day, they're just not action films like the James Bond action films are. They're very much about the characters and what spy craft would really be like in the real world. You wouldn't jump out of a Zeppelin with a parachute and shoot 20 people as you jumped off of it. But you would take a USB drive from someone in the Russian government and be asked to carry that on a plane and have the paranoia of, does anyone know I have this? That type of thing. Love those films. They're fantastic. And then, of course, there's probably my favorite of the John le Carré films, and I think the most classic of them all, is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was made into a movie with John Hurt as one of the main actors. But fantastic film. got so many great actors in it. It's got, like I said, John Hurt. It's got Gary Oldman. Colin Firth is in it. Tom Hardy, Benedict Cumberbatch, all young actors up and coming at the time. And this is a classic Cold War double agent who you've got a cast of characters, and one of them is very clearly the bad guy, and trying to figure out who that is with flashbacks and crosses and double crosses and things like that. A fantastic film, the end of which there's the end scene is it's got this one song that plays over a montage. It's one of my favorite montages of all time because it just wraps up the plot with a song so fantastically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and again, it's similar to John le Carré's other films based on his books. It's not about the action. There's no shootout. The one shootout that's in a film is someone gets shot and then falls down because they got shot. There's no, ow, you've shot me, I'll continue the action scene now. So absolutely just love that film. And the cast is just so stacked. I haven't mentioned half of the cast. You'll recognize almost everyone in the cast from somewhere. That's how stacked the cast is. So again, if you haven't seen any of these films, you gotta see them. They're fantastic.
So I've got a couple. Mostly this is where I mostly interacted with the James Bond franchise. One being, so everyone's Goldeneye, right, on the Nintendo 64. That kind of speaks for itself. What I will mention though is all of the things that tried to jump onto that nostalgia that were like, Goldeneye Rogue Agent, a remake of Goldeneye, a remake with Daniel Craig of Goldeneye for the Wii, Goldeneye this. Like there's a few, 3 or 4 that were like, just put the Goldeneye name on it to try to get you to play them, because at that point, Bond games were like, after that, Bond games became pretty generic.
Yeah.
First, there's a time in like the 90s, early 2000s that everything was like trying to be either Halo or something else. So they were like, oh, we're Call of Duty or we're Halo. And then those boxes that said like Halo Killer on it were just hilarious.
Goldeneye is definitely worth the mention because it was a defining first person shooter at the time. You mentioned Halo, Call of Duty. Those are type of games that define a generation of games. And Goldeneye did that. The amount of Goldeneye clones, like when Perfect Dark came out after Goldeneye, set in its own universe, we all played it because it was so much fun. And like, so it really more. It set the standard. It made me sad to own a PlayStation 1 at the time. I had to go over to my cousin's house to play Goldeneye.
Anyway, so the one I really did want to call out actually was James Bond Bloodstone. It is a Daniel Craig game where he's featured. They have a very good sounding guy who sounds like him, but it's like a third person action cover shooter, but it has some like great set pieces. It starts like a boat chase, and then you're on the line fighting up a dock, and then there's like a car chase. It's actually fantastic, and I think you can get it for, I know it was on Xbox 360, and most Bond games I actually don't think are very good, even though I've played most of them. But James Bond Bloodstone, let's see. It's cheap as dirt right now. You can get a copy for $14. I think it's even on Steam at this point if you can find a copy. But that was actually, if you want more Daniel Craig Bond and want like a fun game, like that was a lot of fun. That was a really good game.
Interesting. So
no one talked about it either, which was weird.
No, and so this is an original story, it looks like to me.
Yep. Yeah. I think so.
Wikipedia is telling me that is in fact true.
Okay. All right. You're already on it. Okay. I was like, oh god. But no, it was actually just cool. Like it was on the high of Casino Royale, and so I remember just being in. I was working at GameStop at the time, or maybe Best Buy, either one. But I'm like, I'll give it a shot, and I played through all the weekend. Like it was great. Like just power through, have a good time. So highly recommend that.
Nice. I love the fact that because the Bond films are based on the novels, and we'll get to some of the novels in a little bit, but I love the fact that you can continue playing. You can play a Bond movie that's an original story. In a game. It seems like it should happen more often. It seems like most Bond games should just be that.
Yeah, I'm really when I try to do the movie, because there's a lot of them. Like I think the one you've got in our show notes is like based on a movie, right?
No, actually, you're talking about Everything or Nothing.
Yeah, was it not?
Nope. So that's the first Bond game that was an original story.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm blowing it. I'm blowing it.
So we'll jump into Everything or Nothing because this is by far, I know GoldenEye, the nostalgia, Everything or Nothing is my favorite Bond game by far. Like Bloodstone, it's got an original story. Came out, and I think I should probably know the answer. I think 2004, maybe 2003. It's actually a direct sequel to the last Pierce Brosnan movie. So it's actually the last time that Pierce Brosnan plays Bond is a Bond game, not a movie.
Oh,
because he comes back for the voice. Judi Dench comes back. John Cleese comes back. The guy who plays Jaws is in the game as Jaws. Jaws is in the game somehow.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure he died in the movie, so I don't know how he's back, but that's fine.
Movie magic.
But but they treat it like a Bond film. It has its own Bond theme. They cast it like a Bond movie. Willem Dafoe is the villain.
Oh, okay.
The woman, I believe her name is her singer's name is Maya. Apparently she's an actress from back in the early 2000s. I've never heard of her, but she was big at the time, so they had her as a Bond girl, and she did the theme. They had Heidi Klum as one of the Bond girls, and I don't know if you remember from American Pie, Shannon Elizabeth is the main Bond girl. She's on the cover. She's in the title sequence, so it's weird to see her in anything. She's so well known for American Pie, and I don't think much else, at least to my mind. But to see her in there as a Bond girl, I thought they really went above and beyond to cast this film like you would cast a movie.
Yeah. No, for real. Like, I had no idea because it was on PS1, right?
PlayStation 2, I believe, or maybe even 3. Time is weird with consoles. I think I played it on the GameCube, if I remember correctly. So it would have been the GameCube era.
You've named like five. Where was it?
Is GameCube with PlayStation 2? I think so.
Nothing.
Yes. Okay, so it would have been
5 and IGN.
Yeah. So yes, it would have been
Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy Advance. Don't play it on Game Boy Advance. It's probably terrible. But yeah, so PlayStation 2, GameCube, that era of consoles. Just the story is okay, the story is a James Bond story. It's typically corny, but it's fun. It has what's called James Bond moments. And there's one scene in particular that's my favorite scene from the whole game. You're driving a motorcycle down a freeway trying to catch this oil truck controlled by Jaws. Even though you're on a motorcycle, apparently the truck driver is very fast. It's hard to catch up to him.
Yeah.
I just love everything about this level. First off, for early 2000s, it's a fantastic action scene. You're weaving in and out of cars. You shoot missiles out of the front of your bike. You shoot them straight. So you're trying to like weave in and out and you're trying to shoot missiles at the same time. Every time you hit a car, M gets on the line and scolds you for killing civilians.
Be careful, Bob. The target is Jaws, not innocent motorists.
And if you kill too many, you fail the level. But the best part of the level for me, the funniest part is if you shoot the missiles at the truck, it doesn't stop it. You have to go up alongside it and shoot a flamethrower out of the side of your motorcycle. That's how you stop it. Not with missiles.
Yeah, this is a decked out bike. Jeez.
Yeah, but there's a scene in that where another truck is tipping over and you're coming alongside a motorcyclist. I'll put it on the screen for the video. But there's a quick time event where you slide your bike under the truck. You shoot the guy on the other bike. His bike flies into the truck, and then it explodes behind you as you go out the other side. It's perfect.
Pitch perfect.
How old would I have been when that game came out? 17, 18, I think.
Yeah. Looking at the box cover now, I recognized it when I was working. I was working at the game stores. Like even hit I saw the greatest hits on there. But did you know that you can connect Everything or Nothing, the Game Boy Advance cartridge, to your Nintendo GameCube for bonus content? You missed out. There's stuff you didn't get to see because it wasn't connected.
Yeah, there we go. 17-year-old Pat, very upset.
Cool. Games, now books. This is where Pat is the authority and I am merely a peasant. Go on. Tell me about the books you read, Pat. Go on.
All right, so I'll start out with some more James Bond novels. How about that?
Oh, no.
So in the 80s, obviously Ian Fleming had stopped writing Bond novels, and they actually did a reboot of James Bond written by John Gardner. And I have all of the books upstairs. They get, as with any series of books that gets to be like 10, 15, 20 books long, they get pretty generic. But I'd say the first 5 or 6 are really good. And it is literally a reboot of James Bond. It is the character James Bond. He's actually retired, and they reactivate his license to kill. And the very first book, I remember they had a plane hijacking sequence where he was on a plane, he had to stop a plane hijacking. But the books are really well done. I actually like them better than the Ian Fleming novels, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot of action. It deals with Blofeld, who is the main villain of Spectre in the original Bond. It deals with his, I don't want to spoil too much in case people actually want to read them, but essentially his child becomes a leader of a reborn Spectre and figuring out how that's happened. Those first 5 or 6 novels are really fantastic as action novels. After that, they get a little generic, as again, any novel will be, but they're absolutely fantastic. And even today, there are other James Bond novels that keep coming out. I have a couple upstairs. They'll have someone do one that's just an original story every now and then. I think it's Devil May Care is the one I have upstairs. And apologies, I don't know who wrote that one, but they're actually really, for the most part, they're pretty well written, and they're all original stories. So none of them have been made into films or TV shows or anything like that. So if you're a huge Bond fan and you only know the Ian Fleming side of things, go check out John Gardner's first 5 or 6 Bond books, and then go check out Devil May Care, specifically one I thought was really well done. But every now and then they have a new author come up with an original story, and if you like the films, they're just more James Bond. So definitely go check those out. Evan, did you want to talk about the Jack Reacher books?
Yeah, I mostly read fantasy, honestly, or sci-fi. So I don't really do thrillers and spy thrillers too much.
Yeah.
But I do read Jack Reacher books, which again falls under it, not really, but they're the closest thing I have. So I'm gonna roll with it. The Jack Reacher movie, the first one, I think it was based off One Shot. I believe the name of the book was. Book's good. You read that more or less. The movie had it pretty dead on. Then the second movie, it's like Never Go Back, was based on the book of the same name, and that wasn't great. That wasn't great. So the movie wasn't great. He writes one a year, or he was for a while. So as you were saying, they do get like Jack Reacher goes into town. Jack Reacher's a drifter. He's the outside man. Like the first couple you read, you're like, oh wow, this is like fun. He's like a good guy, but he's brutal and mean to the bad guys, so they scare them. And there's 2 that I remember that stick out: The Killing Floor and Persuader. Killing Floor would have been just a better movie. So he goes into a town that's super rich, but nobody's there. So like it's a town, like a town stretch. They've got like a barbershop with barbers who work there, but they never cut hair, because what's happening is this rich farmer he's actually selling like farming drugs, and he's paying the town to look perfect so no one thinks anything.
To just
so
exist.
The town always looks, to just exist so he can do this. And there's a great scene where everyone's so scared of this guy because this guy sends his son out with like a kill team to go and kill anybody who like breaks his rules. And so Jack Reacher lures them into this abandoned mansion, and it's pouring, and he's just taking them out one by one. And it just would have been, it was like so thrilling and like intense, because the rain and thunderstorms drowning out their screams as he's like taking them out. And like they even have like a pool fight. Like he jumps from a balcony, like tackles a guy, and they fall into a pool, and they're fighting in there. I'm just thinking like, man, this would have been a great scene to watch. And we just didn't get that, and like Never Go Back. And that was so cool and awesome. I was so gripped. And then Persuader's a shotgun. And so there's a drug cartel that it's on the face is a drug cartel, but it's really a gun running cartel. And there's like a lot of things that, like, who he thinks are the villains are actually being held hostage by this other villain. And it's really crazy. It's just crazy stuff. But like I was really good too. Like a lot of action, he gets in, he pretends he's somebody else because he's a drifter. He doesn't have any ID. He has nothing. He just has the money on his pocket. That's the hero. And I think at the Killing Floor, might have been Persuader. One of them, like, they kill his brother, which is really superfluous because no one cared. He never talked about him until he died. And so that rage feel like, I was just like, okay, all right. Like,
I'm on the Wikipedia, and I believe it's the Killing Floor from the plot summary.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It just doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, a weird thing. Pretty much most of them are pretty good. Like they're just like you. They're like he shows up in a town. There's a problem. He figures out how to deal with it. But if you get a chance, there's so many now, and they're not all created equal. But if you get a chance to audible them, they're like 8 hours or something a book.
Nice.
They're really not too bad. But audible, read them. You can get them. I bought mine at secondhand bookstores for like $1 a piece.
Yes, yeah.
They're just little like trade paperback. If you get a chance to get them, if you like the first movie and you wanted more of that, because when they announced they were making movies, I was hyped. I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get all the good books. It's gonna be great. And then now we got, for whatever reason, the publishing house really pushed Never Go Back. Like it was, you walked into Barnes and Noble when it came out, it was like all over the place, and they had the movie up. They're really trying to cross sell that, and it just anyway.
Yeah.
If you can find them like secondhand, especially, super good.
Nice. And so I'm looking here. There's been 25 novels. So I think like with anything, including James Bond, there's only so many plots, right? So like some of them are going to be winners, some of them are not. Like there's only so many times the person you thought was on your side is actually the bad guy can work in any series. But like you, I'm Evan, I'm actually with you. If you look at the bookshelf behind me, I'm a sci-fi fantasy guy. I don't read too many spy novels. Aside from the Bond novels, I'll quickly mention the John le Carré novels. Previously, we'd mentioned the films that the novels are based on. The novels are also very well done. They're definitely worth reading. They're not action-packed or anything like that, but they are definitely worth a shot if you're interested in the espionage side of things.
Okay.
One thing I do want to mention so far as reading goes is a comic book.
Okay.
And this might be my favorite comic book of all time, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
And this is called Queen and Country.
Okay.
And Queen and Country is a black and white, there's no color, black and white comic book. Yeah. It's written by the same person, but each kind of arc is illustrated by a different person. Some of them are better than others, but generally speaking, it's a fantastic comic that deals with, it kind of walks the line really well between an espionage novel and an action novel. So, a lot of times we'll talk about John le Carré, there's not a lot of action, or James Bond or other films like that, or Mission Impossible. It's not about the plot. Who cares? It's just an action film. Yeah. But these do a really good job of, their spy work actually takes a toll on these people's personal lives. There's a lot of alcoholism and work affairs, and not just affairs, but like the interpersonal play between the characters that actually matters. And then there's the action side of things. And the actions, considering the comics in black and white, the action scenes are really well done, but it's not just the action. Like I said, with the espionage, there's a lot of tension going on. Walking through the streets of, give an example from the prequel comic of a Cold War era Berlin, or in the case of the current present day, being a woman, a spy walking through Afghanistan post 9/11. They do a great job of spelling out the tension there and making it so that even when you're looking at panels of books where, there's not a lot of action going on, there's still the tension of the scene.
Sure. Yeah.
And the characters are fantastic. It's based off the British SIS, MI6, similar to James Bond. There's 3 spies. They're called Minders, Minder 1, Minder 2, Minder 3, and they're based on seniority. So Tara's the middle one. So she has a kind of mentor, and then she has a protege, a kind of fresh protege who's new to the scene and takes risks and things like that he maybe shouldn't, that type of thing. So if you are looking for a comic book that isn't just typical superhero, because I don't particularly care for a lot of those comic books. Yeah. If you're looking for a good independent comic book written by an author that has gone on to do a lot of great things, I believe his name is Greg Rucka is the comic book artist. He's written, I believe, for DC after that, but they're all fantastic. I believe there's 8 paperbacks in the main series. Cannot recommend them enough. They're just fantastic.
Is there a trade paperback?
Yeah, in fact, that's where I purchased them. Each one, there's 8 trade paperbacks, and I don't know if you can get them together now. I have just the 8 main trade paperbacks, yeah. And then there's a prequel series based on the Cold War. And then I believe, I haven't read any of them, but I believe there's novels as well that take place between the comic arcs. So I should probably read those at some point. Just, if anything, just to support the author buying his purchase, but buying his book. But man, what a fantastic comic book.
This is where I can actually have some expertise on the spy genre. Spector Ops, what a fantastic little game, but done by Plaid Hat. One person plays the spy, and other people play the operatives. And so the spy's trying to get into this like facility, the unnamed facility. You don't know if the spy's good or bad guy. You don't know if the guys defending it are good or bad guys. It's very like, but the spy, and they've got like some gadgets, and it's all hex grid, like F12 kind of thing. It's this giant board, all hex grid, and the spy plays on a pad of paper, and the agents move figurines around the board. And each time the figurine, like one of them's a werewolf guy, one of them's like a sniper, one of them's a robot man. And so if you ever get line of sight, like a straight line, the spy, everyone has to be honest. So the spy has to say, "You can see me."
Yeah.
And man, does it get intense. So like the spy takes his turn, he like does an action, and he moves, and then you're desperately as the operative like trying to get into a hallway, like, "Are you here?" Running into him, because the combat's like, if the enemies get you, you're just taking damage. Like the spy can die, but the operatives can't be killed. They just get knocked out for a turn.
Gotcha.
But basically, the agents an end condition. That's their goal for the spies, is to beat him before he gets all the objectives and gets out. And the objectives are random. It gets intense. Like, it's a lot of fun because you don't know where you are. Then you get to things where it's like one of the agents can get last known location and is here, and then it's nowhere near where you thought he was, and it's just like panic.
Yeah.
That's Spector Ops is phenomenal. It's
all right. Yeah. We definitely got to play that. That sounds super fun. I'm going to talk about a game that's a lot lighter than that, but is generally the same concept. And Evan, I don't know if you remember this. One of the first times we met, we were in Toronto.
Yeah.
And we played this in a board game cafe. So the game is called Spyfall.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple game. In fact, if you're new to board games and you want to pick one up to play with your friends in like a party scenario, this is very cheap and it's very easy to play. Yeah, and there's multiple versions of it. Every player is going to get a card, and every single card is the same except for one. All of the cards will have a location on it. It'll have a picture of a location, let's say hotel or submarine or the beach, and it'll show a bunch of details about the picture. Except for one person. One person will have a card that just says the word spy on it. And that person is the spy. So the game is so simple. All that happens is this. You point at one person and you ask them a question. Mm-hmm. And you ask them a question about the location that they're at. And they have to answer that question. And then that person asks another person a question. And you go around like that until one of two things happens. One, you think you know who the spy is, in which case everyone takes a vote. If they're correct, they win, and if they're incorrect, the spy would win. Mm-hmm. Or if the spy thinks they're close to being caught, they can try and guess the location. Because the key is when the spy is asked a question, they don't know what the question is referring to. So if we're at a beach, they don't know. They're not
about anything. Just be anything. So it's not just, just be like, "How'd you get to work today?"
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And if you're the spy and you say, "I walked," well, they're going to know you're the spy because you wouldn't walk to a submarine theoretically. So there's a really lovely thing that the game does that makes it work, and that is because the spy can guess the location to win. The people asking the questions who know the location have to ask questions that make the other players understand they know the location, but don't give the location away to the spy. And so you have to be vague enough, but specific enough. It's brilliant. It's so simple. And there's a couple of different versions of it there. There's different packs. There's even a DC one, so you can play as like Batman and Superman and things like this. Just a fantastic little game. If you are new to board games, if you don't play a lot of board games like us, you can see behind me.
Yeah.
But you want to pick up a game that's about espionage, about spying, and it's just a fun little party game.
Great party game.
Highly recommend it. So much fun.
Great party game because it's easy to sell. There's no rules. There's rules, but it's not like going through a game where you're like, you open up the rule booklet and it's like pages of just text, right? You can ask any question you want. Just gotta find the spot.
When I teach the game, I don't look at the rule book. I just explain the game and then we play. There's no need to open the rule book if you know how to play.
Spyfall is great. My next one's going to be called Inkognito. This is a really cool game. I never see anyone talk about it. I saw it on a Dice Tower review a long time ago and I ended up picking up a copy. So Inkognito is a 4-player game, and you can do 5, and there's like a special role the 5th player gets. It's like the guy who knows all the information. He can like tease out stuff to everybody. But you get 3 agents. It's like fat, tall, and skinny, and they're different colored. Like I have red agents, you have blue agents, and you have objectives. And so it's I need to get my guy to this destination, and everyone's got secret objectives. And you tell when you ask for information, because you get chances to ask each other when you land on a thing. So you're on the board. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself because I really like the game. So you're on this big board, and it's not Mardi Gras. It's the European version of everyone wears masks. And
the map looks like Venice, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's Venice during a festival. That's where the game takes place.
Yeah.
So everyone's wearing witch doctor masks, and so everyone's got a team of guys, and the map is all these different colored roads. And how the game works is you get this giant piece of plastic with a bunch of colored plastic balls in it, and you shake it and you put it down, and it gives you the colored balls, and those are the only routes you can take. So if you really need to go down a red hallway and you don't pull a red, you're like, so that's what makes the movement really cool, because it's not always your choice.
Gotcha.
Right? So you can't always just go where you want, because that dictates where you go. And so you can land on somebody else and you can ask them a question, and 2 lies and a truth. So like I say, are you a tall guy? And they have to like give me 3 answers of what it is. The information going back and forth is interesting because it's not always clear. And so you're going back and forth trying to figure out what their objective is, and trying to hide your guys, because maybe they start figuring out what character they need to assassinate. Because if they assassinate the wrong guy, they just lose. So it's a big deal to say, hey, I'm going to kill that guy. So it's just an auto lose. So assassinations are only like when you have 100% figured out what's going on. There's little cool player boards. What a great game if you can find it. And the one I really wanted to nail down is The Resistance.
Yes, love The Resistance.
There's a ton of versions of this too. There's one just called, there's Avalon, which is medieval Arthur Knights. The Resistance is your cyber guys, and part of you the Resistance, some of you are spies. And then there's a bunch of different versions of this game type. So in The Resistance, this is the game that destroys friendships. So everyone gets handed out a card, and you're either part of the Resistance or you're a spy. And you ask questions a little bit, and there's some back and forth. But what it is, every turn someone's the leader, and they say, hey, Pat, you, Joe, and Fred are going on a mission, and you're 3. That's who I pick. And then you each have a mission succeeds card or a mission fails card. And if you're a Resistance member, you always play the mission succeeds card. But if you're a spy, you play the failure, and you don't know who played the card. So you take them, you shuffle them, and then if there's a failure card, then one of those 3 people is a spy, but you don't know who. And so you try to start like narrowing it down about who it is, and it gets heated. Conversations get heated. I'm not a spy. I bet my paycheck I'm not the spy. Like this stuff like that. Like
the thing I love about the game is if you're the spy, you don't have to put fail down. If you can put succeed, the mission can succeed. And then later on in the game, you're picked for another mission, then you can put the fail down. Yeah. And when someone accuses you, can say, no, I was on the mission that succeeded. Yeah, I cannot be the spy. And so there's all these mind games going on. But of course, then people know you could do that. And a real spy could know you could do that even if you're not a spy. So all these mind games come into this. I've been the person screaming, like, I am not the spy. Dude, and people just don't believe me. You know?
There's a game so the game can run pretty long.
Yeah, for what it is, it runs pretty long, right?
For our purposes, I do recommend it, but I'm gonna shoot you toward it's not if you like that idea, because we're in the spy thing, that's my pick for that. One Night Ultimate Werewolf, or whatever version of that you want to pick. It's the same idea, but it lasts for a round. So everyone gets an ability, everyone closes their eyes, and you run an app, and it tells you different times to open your eyes, do stuff, but it's only a round of that tension, and less friendships get broken. I think that's a good alternative for a faster, more friendly game.
I have to confess that I absolutely hate One Night Ultimate Werewolf, so I'll give an alternate suggestion.
Okay.
And that is a game called Coup, which is actually in the same universe as The Resistance. And you can have one of 5 different roles. You have 2 roles, and they can be one of 5 different types of roles. One is like an assassin, one can block assassins, one's kind of a rich dude, one is a thief. And so sometimes you'll just play your two roles. Like I'm going to assassinate you with my assassin. Other times you might want to lie to get away with it, but your bluff can be called. If you assassinate someone and someone says you don't have an assassin, if you don't, you might lose your role. But if you do, then you get to assassinate them. That, I think, is a game that probably plays with lower player counts better than the Resistance. So you can play with 4 and it's perfectly fine. Whereas the Resistance, I believe you need a minimum of 6 players.
5 or something.
5 or
It's
6,
a
yeah.
lot.
And
Both
really,
games
you
are
want to
hard
play the
to get.
Resistance with 6 to 9 people, right?
Yeah.
So Coup plays 4 to 6 fantastically, plays in about 20 minutes, and is an absolutely wonderful bluffing game. So that'd probably be my recommendation. I think One Night Ultimate Werewolf, I don't like it personally, but I know lots of people do. So that's definitely another great recommendation of a game that kind of just takes like 20 minutes and is all about what do you think people are? What kind of role do they have?
Yeah,
you know?
and there's one called Secrets, and that's very much the same too. I think it's called Secrets.
I don't think I played that. One thing while you look that up,
Yeah.
these games that we're mentioning, like the Resistance, like Coup, if you are not an outgoing enough person to accuse people of things, I don't know if these are games for you. That you have to
Yes.
really love bluffing and being deceptive with your friends and pointing at someone you know is a good guy and convince everyone else that no, this person, possibly my best friend, this man right here is a traitor to our country. So if you're not outgoing, if you're not comfortable with that type of game, stay away from these. So I think that about wraps it up. We've been going over an hour now. Thank you everyone for listening. If you want to hear more from Evan is a streamer at space_husky on Twitch. I'll put a link down in the description below. But if you want to check Evan out, Evan, what type of games do you play normally?
So I'm a variety streamer. So I stick to Sea of Thieves. That's my big one because it's fun. Sea of Thieves, Hunt Showdown, Fallout 76, because I find those are fun. But actually, if you're listening to this in October, which is soon-ish, I'm doing a 1,000-Year Vampire. Got my old book here. Oh God,
The green screen.
Let's just fade out into the background Empire stream where I'll be playing that, and I'll have a PDF or something up too, so you can play along with me because it's a single player pen and paper about being a 1,000-year-old vampire. I think that'd be fun to do just because everyone can tell me the terrible things they do. This isn't like a nice vampire; you're an awful vampire.
Yeah.
And so I find that really funny. I just do a lot of things. I'm even thinking about painting. I don't know. Whatever I find fun.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll put the link down below. And Evan, thank you for jumping on with me, and we'll be back with a new episode at some point in the future.
All right. Hey, thanks everyone.
Yep.
Stay rad.